I think the bankers at the top are probably hedging their bets and probably with physical gold and silver. Now, I don't know this. I don't talk to, Jamie Dimon isn't in my phone. Let's just put it that way. But the fact is, I'll bet you my bottom dollar that these guys are actually probably, and I hate to say this, they're probably getting physical gold and silver, and they're probably getting something like Bitcoin too.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for October 28th through November 4th, 2024, while supplies last. This week we feature gold half-ounce backdated Canadian maples at just $110 over melt. We also have backdated silver 1-ounce Britannia at just $2.99 over spot per ounce. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Patrick Holland is a member and founding member of the Missouri Freedom Initiative, an expert on constitutional and sound currency and money. He joins us today, this Tuesday, October 29th, 2024. Patrick, thank you for joining us here again on Liberty and Finance.
Kaiser, thank you so much for having me back. It's a pleasure, indeed an honor to be back. And today I'm actually at a different location. I'm at one of my customer sites. So that's the different background you see here.
We caught you out of your usual studio there, and you're surrounded by server equipment, et cetera, kind of emblematic of the technological era that we find ourselves in. But we're talking about something that goes way back to the founding, not only of our country, but every country that came before our country, and the global history mankind has had for affinity to gold and silver as true money, as sound money.
Yeah, a shared history between all of us, all cultures, all nations. No matter your skin color, what God you believe in, we all shared that same rich history of gold and silver for money.
There are many aspects of common sense and gut instincts and human nature that are being just cast aside. The baby's being thrown out with the bathwater, sometimes literally, in this modern era where we think we're too smart for our own good, building the Tower of Babel. And rather than using what is set before us and that has always worked. In fact, we want to talk to you about the gold standard and its prospects in our country. But first, if you could tell us about the sound money movement progress. You've talked to us about that before. Many states, we used to say it was 9 states, and we said it was 14 states. And anyway, there's a number of states that are absolutely leading the charge despite of the vacuum coming from Washington overall, or the actual antagonism from the central bank and from Washington, to provide leadership that's for the good of the people, for the good of all of our American people, and including all of our children and grandchildren, our economy, the stability, people being able to have something to look forward to, that they can save the fruits of their labor and build something lasting. So could you talk to us about how the progress is coming on the sound money movement across the country? Where are there hot spots of progress? Where are there particular challenges being faced? What do our people need to know who are listening to this? Because our viewers are from all over the country and frankly all over the world, as far as how the sound money movement is coming in the U.S. right now.
Okay, well, that's actually a loaded question, and I could do a filibuster with this, actually. The actual leadership on the sound money movement, as far as I can tell, are in 3 states: Texas, Florida, and Missouri. That's where the leadership, basically of people pushing legislation in their states and indeed in other states. So you have the Economic War Room in Texas. You have Citizens for Sound Money based out of New Hampshire and Florida. I forgot to add New Hampshire to that. And then, of course, the Missouri Freedom Initiative in Missouri. And we all got linked up, beginning of legislative session this year. So I'd say November, almost exactly a year ago is when all 3 of us linked up and started in arm in arm, locked arm in arm, starting tackling this in a lot more states because there's power in numbers. Now, as far as states that have got stuff done, that's an interesting story too, because we could talk about Arkansas that got legal tender for gold and silver in 2023, and they got rid of capital gains taxes too, with absolutely no grassroots pushing it. It just sailed right through their legislature, was signed by the governor. From the day it was filed in the House to the day it was signed in the governor was 13 days. But there are states like Missouri and Florida that fight so hard with tons of grassroots people going to the Capitol, demanding that they get their constitutional right from their legislators in their states, to have the right to use gold and silver as legal currency. Now, you and I have this right now. We have this. We can do this all we want. But getting businesses on board, that's always been key. It's like the Fed Now program. The Fed Now knows it can't go forward with its agenda without the businesses. But the gold and silver people like Economic War Room, Citizens for Sound Money, Missouri Freedom Initiative, we also know we must capture businesses in order for what we want, to happen to work. So we're all going for the same people, which is business. The Fed now is doing it by incentivizing incentivizing banks to incentivize businesses to stop taking cash. We do it by incentivizing to use gold and silver. And there's lots of free market solutions. We could go into that in another podcast. That's another big topic. And there's lots of companies out there, lots of solutions. Gold and silver is as easy to use as the current system we have right now, electronically, physically, with gold backs, gold coins, and also, the bullion banks that are out there. Kinesis, we got UPMA, they're all over the place. So we actually have all the options. They're ready to go. What they're waiting for is one thing, Dunagun. This is actually the money shot right here. For businesses to feel comfortable using it, number one, it must be legal tender in their state. Number two, no capital gains taxes. And number three, this is the cherry on top. If your state can get this done legislatively, it's very simple. And it's simply for the state to accept gold and silver for payment of taxes as an option. Those three things right there will get businesses on board. So for the Economic War Room and Citizens for Sound Money and the Missouri Freedom Initiative, we have the antidote to the Fed Now program. We have it. And we're selling it to all the states for free by helping write legislation in every state to get gold and silver recognized as legal tender.
Yeah, it's interesting because later this week, we're going to be having a representative from Florida on here as well, talking about this. And I know that you've been helping out many states with sample legislation and that sort of thing to help them get a leg up and to learn from the lessons that have already been learned and the bridges that have already been crossed on this. If we could look for a moment at the promise that a gold standard would bring, and it's noteworthy that Trump economic advisor Judy Shelton is a strong advocate, outspoken advocate for the gold standard. If you wanted to summarize for people who want to be able to communicate, effectively about this with friends, families, neighbors, coworkers, what the key advantages would be to our country and to our country's people if we were on a gold standard, and then where you see the opportunities for progress towards that happening right now at this time.
Sure. Well, the benefits for being on a gold standard can't be understated. All of the corruption that most countries enjoy within the political body of their countries is because of cheap, easy money. So it ties up everything, literally. Even education, public education. You get rid of the dollar as it is right now, an unbacked, basically a valueless currency, and you start going to something of value, you're going to see education change too. We'll go back to basics. We'll stop doing all the extra stuff that may or may not be important to have. And that's a side issue. But the benefits literally go on to preventing inflation from happening. If people can save in gold and silver, Dunagun, I think you may know the statistics. Over time, gold only inflated at about 2% a year because that's how fast they were digging it out of the ground, right? But as a weird coincidence, worldwide, the population expansion was also about 2% a year. So there was no real inflation. There was no nominal or real inflation. It just didn't happen. So if we want to get rid of inflation, we just have to go back to real money. We can actually do this. But it doesn't benefit the bankers. The military industrial complex, they'll be hurting for certain, Dunagun, if we go back to gold and silver, because we can't just print up money to go to war whenever right? So that's, and the benefits are endless. We could go on forever on this one too.
That might explain why that's where Representative Ron Paul, we attended, my son Elijah K. Johnson and I, who are the hosts on this channel, attended his Ron Paul Institute Peace and Prosperity Conference in Arlington, Virginia, and it was remarkable to see the parallels. He has always been a critic of the worldwide network of military bases and adventurism that we have all over the world, 750 plus military bases as the United States, et cetera, et cetera. He's also, not coincidentally, been an advocate for sound money based on gold and silver. And I appreciate you making the connection there that being completely untethered from reality on a going forward spend basis allows countries to become military adventurous, way more militarily adventurous, much more than those who are bound by their constitution, et cetera, to sound money, because you simply can't afford to do things like that. And a lot of other crazy things, as you pointed out, that we've gotten involved in. And I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that was a very good segue off of that. But it's a very important thing for people to understand. These world wars that are just, world wars, I shouldn't call them that. These skirmishes all over the planet would not be happening if everyone was on literally gold and silver for money. They just wouldn't happen. Now, in the old days, as you know, if we wanted to go to war with someone, if we did not get their gold at the end of the war, chances are we would be their slaves for a couple of generations. So people went to war, and then, of course, the spoils of war was the gold that you were taking from the country that you attacked. And so your country would be that much more powerful. Plus, you can pay back the debt that you incurred for having that war in the first place. But it doesn't work that way anymore. But the suppression of gold and silver, actually, we should have gone on an ideological war, I think, with, the central banks and the powers that be that were involved, including BlackRock, JP Morgan, involved in suppressing the price of gold and silver, because it wasn't suppressed anywhere else. Gold and silver have been at all-time highs in most currencies on the planet for at least the last 4 years, at least. But that's not true in the dollar. That's a new thing for us. In fact, Dunagun, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Do you remember the day that gold became $2,000 for the very first time?
I do.
Because something big happened in the news that day. Do you remember what it was?
I don't.
Okay. Do you remember some grain silos like in a harbor in Lebanon blew up the whole harbor? Okay, that's what happened the day gold turned $2,000. So there's always events to shift the public consciousness away from the fact that gold is quote unquote going up in value. But you and I know that's not what's happening. Gold hasn't gone up in value at all. It's the dollar is going down in value. And so that's the nominal confusion that people often associate with, virtually anything. Why is oil suddenly so valuable? It's not. There's still a lot of it. It's not rare. So the problem is the dollar goes down and the world trades oil with dollars. So this is what happens. So, as long, and it's the education system as well. This is basic economics, very basic stuff. If you overprint the dollar, the ones that are out in existence right now are simply going to be worth less in value. You're going to be able to buy less stuff with it. So if you hold on to gold and silver, if you stack gold and silver, I'm a stacker, the way I think everyone knows that about me. But if you stack it in your mind, that's your retirement right there, because that is kind of inflation proof. Now, the thing that really sets off people who first get involved and they hold on to for 2 years and it's not going up as fast as they thought it would. They think this is a way to get rich. Beating the system is not about getting rich. It's about not playing with their toys. That's what it's about. And that's what I think a lot of us forget from time to time. Playing with dollars is playing their game. If we play with gold and silver, we're playing our game. That is not their game.
You know what? We live in a 55 plus community. We meet a lot of retired people or people who are near retirement. When we go out for social gatherings, it's usually with people in that age. It's concerning to me, gravely concerning, to have casual conversations with people who say that they're comfortably retired, and yet they have no inkling that they don't have real money, that they don't have any money, really. They have credits in the system. Can you make that distinction clear for us about what the difference is between having real money that holds its value over time versus just having credits in the system and being completely subject to the whims of the governments and the banks, et cetera?
Okay, well, I'm going to take it to its fundamentals here. We're going to go to the concrete foundation of that, and that is the dollar can go to zero. And a lot of people don't think it can. It's America. It's the dollar. There's no way that can happen. Yet we've seen that happen in history with every single paper currency since the beginning of time. All of them have failed except for the ones that are currently running right now. The ones currently running right now replaced failed currencies in the past. So basically, if your dollar can go to zero, your dollar denominated assets can also go to zero. If they're denominated in dollars, they will be denominated in something else later on. But before they are denominated in a new currency, like for instance, if the dollar fails, Trump says, okay, we're going back to gold and silver. I highly doubt he will say that. Honestly, he may talk about backing the dollar with gold or something. I'm not a fan of that, by the way. In fact, I wish I had it with me here today. I usually show a silver certificate and a gold certificate. This is a $5 bill and a $20 bill from the 1920s. Those were transferable directly for gold and silver. So, and by the way, that is the way it should have been this whole time. But because we don't do this anymore, I think a lot of people have that nominal confusion when it comes to their investments and retirement assets that they think about constantly. What will it be worth in $20? In 20 years? What will it be worth? And so we try and conjure something up in our mind. Well, at the current rate of the stock growth or the current, bond yield rate. But what they're not thinking about is how much more devalued will the dollar be in 20 years? That's what they're not thinking about. So when things go up in value, it's not necessarily going up in value. It's the dollars going down in value. So you need more of those dollars to buy that asset. That's all it is. And people think they're getting ahead when that happens. And I think a lot of people have thought during COVID and all the money that was printed during COVID that they're rich. If you've been to the grocery store lately, you'll know that you're not rich. I joke, by the way, every time I go to the grocery store, I see the same guy checking out. And he says, hey, how's it going? I said, hey, I'm celebrating. I just got a third on my house. So I'm celebrating by going to the grocery store. But it's that bad in the grocery store. People know this. And so is the food I'm buying more valuable? Dunagun, is it more valuable than it was 2 years ago? The answer is no, it's not. It takes the same exact calories, labor, BTUs, or whatever to grow and harvest the food that it did before. Well, people will say, well, the calories and the manpower cost more now. No, they cost more because they overprinted the dollar. It's very simple math. So I can passively take advantage of that entire system just by holding on to physical gold and silver, which is what I do. Now,
not all people are acting as though this isn't a reality. This is the common people that are unfortunately still sleepwalking, as we have been for the last couple of generations. You treating the funny mini paper dollar. Oh, and here's an example of where that kind of stuff leads to. Here's a 1 million Bolivar note there. So this is the kind of stuff that happens when you...
Congratulations. You probably get a can of beans with that.
I'm not sure you could. Maybe a few beans, yeah. But anyway, you'd have to be a bean counter. The point is, at the high end of the food chain, there are actions being taken by those in the know that belie what's really going on. You mentioned to me before we got started the rate of physical gold accumulation by central banks around the world. So in the face where ordinary people, ordinary moms and pops who think they're retired and think their financial futures are secure, don't have any precious metals. That's 99.5% of people have no investments in physical precious metals. But what are the bankers at the top doing?
Well, I think the bankers at the top are probably hedging their bets and probably with physical gold and silver. Now, I don't know this. I don't talk to, Jamie Dimon isn't in my phone. Let's just put it that way. But the fact is, I'll bet you my bottom dollar that these guys are actually probably, and I hate to say this, they're probably getting physical gold and silver, and they're probably getting something like Bitcoin too. They're smart people. They truly are. They're hedging their bets. And they're certainly not going to turn their investors on to gold and silver until they feel they have enough. And and I'm talking about personally, not at the banks. I'm talking about Jamie Dimon. What does he have in that safe in his house? He's probably got gold and silver in them. I mean, he'd be stupid not to when you think about it. The fact that he's not talking about it publicly doesn't mean that he's not making investments of that nature. And we know the sordid tales we've heard from Bill Gates and, oh dear God, I forgot the other guy right now, getting silver, in fact, some guy bought a bunch of silver through Japan through a holding company. This was about 4 years ago, and that went out in the news. So he was investing in silver by investing in a company that stores silver in Japan. So the rich have a unique way of getting their gold and silver anyway, and they get it for less money generally than you and I would have, by manipulating the system or by investing in a different way that other people can't do because the large upfront investment necessary to go that route. Warren Buffett, I'm sorry, I was thinking of Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. By the way, they both love silver. They both invest in silver. I don't know if you've ever had any guests on talking specifically about that, but they both, in fact, I think both of them are not into gold. I think both of them are just into silver, believe it or not. And I know that Warren Buffett has said that before. I'm not sure that Bill Gates has said that publicly before. He might be both, but Buffett doesn't want gold. He just wants silver. Interesting. But it is what it is. Silver is the most undervalued asset. It's been under the most pressure because it's so incredibly needed in our society, our technological society. So they try to keep the price low. How long can they get away with it? It's anyone's guess. But look at how much it's gone up in the last 4 years. Dunagun, I remember buying a monster box of maples, and I'm thinking the year was 2018 or it was 2019. And I think I paid $17 an ounce. So the price has just about doubled. I'm at spot price. And that was only 4 years ago. I doubled my money in 4 years. So am I a smart investor? No, I don't have faith in the dollar. That's why I buy gold and silver. I'm not a smart investor. I don't have time to evaluate stocks and bonds and that sort of thing and try and get the most bang for my buck. I have no faith in the dollar. That's why I invest in gold and silver. Physical gold and silver, by the way. I don't have any paper assets.
When we interview former bank director Alistair McLeod, he talks about when a currency is failing, it's the foreigners who recognize it first and get out of it first, and it's the domestic holders of it that are the last to wake up. Central banks around the world have been walking away from the dollar and the treasury for some time and rotating into gold. Can you talk to us about that phenomenon globally?
Sure, absolutely. In fact, I think we'd be remiss if we brought that up without talking about the BRICS nations. And I know a lot of people say that that's just smoke. There's no fire there. I guarantee you there's fire there. Russia has been highly motivated to get off the dollar for 10 years because of U.S. sanctions. Because of, basically U.S. sanctions, Russia literally worked with China to create a competing system, SWIFT. So, and then you see all these and we're talking Eastern Hemisphere central banks here, so we're very clear with everybody. Canada's central bank is not buying gold and silver. The Federal Reserve isn't buying it. Australia's is not buying it. But China is getting it. Russia's getting it. Pakistan, India, Turkey. I mean, we can keep going down the list. They're hoarding like there's no tomorrow. They're getting ready for the dollar to go down. And gosh darn it, they may be the ones to do it by announcing a new currency that's backed by gold. And that's what they've been saying they will do. And everyone that I've talked to says, oh, they've been saying that for 10 years. Well, it takes a little while to get something up that competes with the dollar, but I think they're ready. I think this is something we'll see happen probably inside of the next 4 years. We should see another world reserve currency that literally is competing with the dollar and will eventually overtake the dollar. And in fact, I'm willing to place a $5 bet on this one, Dunagun. I think that when they do that, I think the dollar is going to take massive hits right away because they will back theirs with gold. So China and Russia and many of those countries have the gold to back it up. And they've been accumulating. And of course, we're not getting the real story from China on how much gold they have. We're guessing. But we certainly are guessing they have a lot more than the United States claims to have.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a challenge here on your $5. Are you talking about this $5 that won't be worth much a diddly within that period of time? Are you talking about two of these silver dimes, which are currently worth the same as one of these $5 bills, two of these silver dimes, because they'll still be worth the same amount in a few years from now when that bet comes true.
Well, that's a good point. I have a hard time parting with silver, so it's going to be a $5 bill. But you know what, though? It'll be worth like $25 by then, so don't worry.
Okay, I want to do two more things with you, if you could. One is to zoom in on what's going on in Missouri, because you're a leader in the Missouri Freedom Initiative. You've been extremely active with your legislature and political leaders there and grassroots movements, et cetera. Second is, if you could zoom out and tell people, what can we do about this? In addition, you've implied people can take immediate personal action to acquire real assets such as gold and silver to shore up their own personal finances. But as far as moving the ball forward, are we going to wait for this federal, Judy Shelton and whatever to come out of Washington, or what do we do at the state level right now to keep things moving?
Okay, and thank you for bringing that up, Dunagun, because I think that's a really good point. We shouldn't sit back and wait for someone to come and quote unquote rescue us at the federal level as far as the economy is concerned, or the way our finances work inside the United States. Our debt levels are off the charts. So states can do this. And you have enough states actually interested in this. This is really crazy. 27 states in 2024 had legislation. 7 states got stuff done. So out of that. And by the way, there's resistance in some states like Missouri. We've had basically a Speaker of the House. His name is Dean Clocker. Thank goodness he's termed out, but he was also very politically damaged. There was a lot of scandals around him, but he stopped gold and silver from going through in the state of Missouri 2 years in a row. He single-handedly did this. I suspect something was very similar in Florida. But at the same time, this is what people have to remember is basically in some states, it goes through like a hot knife through butter. Arkansas, I brought that up earlier. In some states, we have to work really, really hard and start showing up at the Capitol and talking to legislators, letting them know this is what we should be doing in our state. We're not replacing the dollar. We're adding another option. That's all we're doing. And so in Missouri, since Dean Clocker has termed out, and because there wasn't enough, I'm trying to be really nice here. There weren't enough Republicans with the fortitude to go against Clocker at the time. Now he's termed out, so hopefully we can get something done in 2025. And I have a sneaking suspicion in your state of Florida, you guys are going to get something big done in 2025 as well. Texas goes forward no matter what. They seem to be able to get that stuff done pretty easily. But this is the deal. I mentioned 3 states, but 27 states had legislation. Now, in approximately 1 month on my website, I will have all the sample legislation written by, as I'm telling you, all the I call us partners, Citizens for Sound Money, Missouri Freedom Initiative, and Economic War Room. Any legislation they've written for any states, we will have that up on my website. So anyone in any state can download a copy of it, bring it to their legislator and say, this is what we need to do in our state to rework this bill for our state, change the statutes, change the codes, and then boom, submit it. Let's get it done. And then support the bill. It's not enough to just give it to someone and have them file it. You need support for that bill. Phone calls, emails, visits to the Capitol, that sort of thing. That's very necessary to get something like this done. And so nationwide, the interest in gold and silver as money took off on a level that I couldn't even believe when I started writing this legislation in 2021. I never thought I would see 27 states doing something at the same time for silver and gold. And I didn't help that many states, but that's where we found each other. Economic War Room, Citizens for Sound Money, Missouri Freedom Initiative, because we were all writing legislation for other states. And so and it was through a YouTube channel called Ron's Basement that we all connected. So that's how it happened. And Ron is the one who made the connection. It wasn't even me. I wasn't paying attention. I was, in my own world, writing legislation, getting it to states, getting it to senators, that sort of thing. But everyone can play a role in this. Even if you think there might be legislation going on in your state, in a month, go to mofree.org and download all the different versions of legislation. Give all of them to your legislators so they can amend their bill, with ideas they didn't think of. And ideas, by the way, and I'm a free market guy, ideas on legislation between states, we should be competing with one another for freedom. We should not be competing with one another to see how totalitarian we can be. Missouri should not be competing with Minnesota or Illinois or California. We should be competing with Texas and Florida and Tennessee. The states that really have a lot of good stuff going on for freedom of the people. And the ultimate freedom of the people is getting out of the dollar and getting rid of the Federal Reserve. I can't stress this enough. This will solve 99% of the world's problems. And by the way, I laugh when I say that because it's so true. People don't realize how many problems a valueless fiat currency actually brings to society and indeed to the entire world.
Well, Patrick, thank you for those specific actionable items that people can do. We're going to go to mofree.org. How long till those documents will be available for us?
I say inside of a month. So definitely before December 1st. Let's put it that way. Definitely, because that's when we pre-file in Missouri. And the problem is I've been caught up in a lot of stuff and I've been having to do a lot of travel this summer. Otherwise, I would have been done with this already. But I'm juggling my time here. But we're back on the ball. I can even tell you who the sponsors will be in Missouri. So a shout out to Senator Mike Moon and a shout out to Representative Bill Hardwick. Those will be our two sponsors in the state of Missouri for silver and gold legislation in 2025. And I think you might have a sneaking suspicion who the sponsors will be in your state as well.
Yeah, and we're talking with Daniel Diaz, who's going to be cluing us in on all the specifics on that this week. And it's I guess in some ways heartwarming but also a bit infuriating that we have to do this at the state level. But that's where stuff's supposed to happen in our country.
That's right. It was always supposed to be at the state level. You're right.
We're going to get it done one state at a time and lots of states at a time. Frankly, at the moment, it is a nationwide wave of public interest on behalf of ordinary people, grassroots. Patrick Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative, we're always grateful for your presence here with us on Liberty and Finance.
God bless you. Thank you so much for having me back. God bless you all. Keep stacking. And also, it's time to get control of our states, gang. The best way to do it is get control of the money supply. It's up to you. It's not up to someone else. It's just up to you.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for October 28th through November 4th, 2024, while supplies last. This week we feature gold half-ounce backdated Canadian maples at just $110 over melt. We also have backdated silver 1-ounce Britannia at just $2.99 over spot per ounce. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.